Thanks for tuning in to the HR Uprising podcast. I'm your host, Lucinda. The HR Uprising is focused on helping forward-thinking people professionals deliver real lasting value in their organisations. I'm a chartered psychologist, speaker and trainer, and recently authored the best-selling business book, How to Be a Change Superhero. My day job is founder and CEO of software and training business Actus. This gives me the opportunity to work with other businesses like yours. We are focused on building a better workplace for people wherever they are located, with the help of our performance, learning and talent management software and our training and consultancy services. Every week on the podcast, I will be covering different topics and challenges, joined by relevant experts and real-life people professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope you enjoy and get value from this week's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's HR Uprising podcast. Hopefully you recognise my voice by now. It's Lucinda here, and I really hope you enjoyed our Career Journeys of a CPO series, and maybe it inspired you along your own career journey. So, would you believe the HR Uprising is about to enter its 6th year? I'm so grateful and proud to still have a loyal listener base, as well as growing numbers of new listeners. So where do we go from here? Well, having looked back through your feedback and comments, many people have been really appreciative of our most practical episodes. And to be honest, that's really what I'm all about. I want to provide you as listeners with helpful tips that you can genuinely put into practice and allow you to add value to your own organisation and in turn develop your HR career. So that's at the root of this new series, which is coming and I'm going to run through with you now, called High Performance HR. Now, as you probably know, I do have a day job running a software business Actus, and developing new quality content for the podcast does take time. Therefore, after 258 episodes, we've decided that we're going to move to dropping new episodes every other week. That's going to give us more time to develop the freshest, most up-to-date content that I hope will bring genuine value to you. Now, in return, I really hope you will continue to support the podcast during this new series. And if you wouldn't mind sharing the podcast with other HR professionals that you think would benefit, that would make the hard work that we put into making it all worthwhile. So it is a cliche. I know you hear it on every podcast and I try not to do it so much, but if you would share, and if you could even consider leaving a review, that would be absolutely awesome. One final housekeeping point, but again, hopefully it's about value. Because we're planning out this 10-point series about high performance HR, we're going to also curate various materials which should help you and be useful to you to use yourself or share with others. And that will vary depending on what the topic is, whether it's going to be a white paper that we've got or an infographic. Or also, we're developing a series of videos. So if you haven't already found our Actus YouTube channel, do take a look at that, because I've got videos called Actus Insights there, which are snippet videos around 5 minutes, which are nuggets of practical information that either you could use yourself or you could share with people in your business, depending on what the topic is. So do please check out our YouTube channel that we're adding new content to all the time, and that's where we'll be adding supporting information that means you can access or utilise the information we cover in the podcast more effectively, hopefully. So on to this new 10-part series called High Performance HR. What's it all about? Well, I mean, it kind of says it in the title, but whether you're an HR leader, if you're learning and development, if you're OD, or even just someone wanting to drive more strategic impact within your business, what I'm hoping is that this will give you insights and tools, and as you know, I'll try and make it extremely pragmatic so that you can put things into practice. And it's all about having a high performance focus within your organisation. Now, I mean, what do we mean by high performance? This doesn't mean it's just aimed at private sector. As I think you know, I work with charities, I work with, at the NHS and various public sector organisations. That is really about how you create an environment where people are thriving, where the organisation is delivering against its mission, and where you in HR are truly a strategic driver of success. You're not having to just wade through the weeds. You feel that what you're doing has purpose. We know we have to do lots of wading through weeds a lot of the time, but if you know that you're adding value and it's going in the right direction, that feels so much more fulfilling, doesn't it? So high performance HR, it's about making sure that our people strategy is aligned with our business goals and we know how we're doing it. So it's helping you lift up your thoughts and make sure you feel on track with that. So let me outline the plan for the series. This is the plan. I hope we'll follow the plan, but you never know with me. Occasionally we might digress from it, but we'll see how we go. So the first episode is going to be thinking about you as an individual. So it's about understanding your purpose and actually understanding that in the context of your organisation. So thinking about what your organisation needs from you and what high performance looks like in your organisation. That's going to touch on things like vision, mission and values, whether it's your own or whether it's that of your organisation. It will also be a bit about how you can make sure you've got the right support networks and relationships that are going to help you to amplify your impact. And we'll touch on things like imposter syndrome in terms of how do you operate in the best way you can to achieve the best results within your organisation. So that's quite a meaty starting point. Episode 2 is then going to be about how can you align strategically with organisational goals. So that's classic strategic HR, and I'll look at things around building an HR strategy. It won't go into OD because that's episode 3 and that's a popular one, but I will look at things like having a balanced scorecard, explaining how you might have an HR balanced scorecard or a learning and development balanced scorecard, the sorts of elements that would fit within it along those lines, explaining what balanced scorecard is if you don't know, and also thinking about how you can design a strategy, how you can start to align your HR strategy with the business strategy and really trying to demystify it, because often being strategic is something that feels really out of reach and scary and complex, but it doesn't need to be. Episode 3 is going to look at organisational development, and the reason I'm going to go into that, it is a second sort of strategic angle, is because this seems to be a topic that people again feel is quite mysterious. So we're going to aim to demystify OD or organisational development. So that means we'll touch on what those topics are within OD. I'll look at tools like the Berkeley tool, which you could use to diagnose organisational culture. So it kind of follows on from the previous episode about being strategic, but allows you to think about all the different things that you might do. So for example, if I talk about Berkeley Twin, that looks at how your HR aligns with external situations, but also internally, which means you're going to look at things like processes, you're going to look at things like leadership and management, you might look at things like culture. And all of those things, or reward and recognition, all of those things basically would fall out of an OD chart or indeed an HR strategy. And those are the sorts of topics that we'll then go into. So if you are feeling that you wanted to follow along with this series, you might want to finish that episode and map out your own OD strategy. And the things that we cover in the following episodes would be relevant, so you can bolster it as we go through. So following on from that, episode 4 is going to be about leadership and management. And wow, I mean, there's so much you can cover there, but we will look at, obviously, great leadership is at the heart of a high performance culture. You in HR high performance, you can't do it on your own. What you need to do is enable it through leaders. So we will look at whether or not you've got leaders on board, how you can take your leaders with you or persuade your leaders to support. And also management. So the difference between leadership and management, how you can encourage the right people management behaviours through your organisation that are going to drive high performance. What in fact are high performance leadership and management behaviours. So that's what we will focus on there, how you can influence that, the sort of training maybe you might look to invest in, maybe things like management charters around high performance, and making sure you've got the right behaviours that sit around your processes. Then we're going to move into more things like process. So episode 5 would be around high performance processes in your organisation. So that would be having a performance management process that supports your the purpose of your organisation. So if you are one that pays for pay and reward for performance, which we'll go on to, then how do you do that? How do you get continuous performance conversations to actually happen? What really works in terms of performance management? How do you encourage your people managers to manage performance in a way that really works? So looking at that, and if you are an organisation that, yes, let's say you are an organisation like a university or a school, how can you align your processes with the cadence of your organisation so that it works? You're not trying to shoehorn something in that doesn't fit your organisation. So you can look at what high performance management processes look like, but think about how could you make that work for your organisation. Then we're going to look at things like reward. So if you did want to align reward with performance, or if you were able to, and we know not everybody can, well, how can you do that? So look at reward strategies in terms of if you were going to do ratings, how would you make those work? What's the pros and cons of those? Things like bell curves, can those work in terms of reward for performance? Calibration, what is that in terms of a process? But then equally, if you can't use monetary reward, how else can you reward performance or high performance? So are there other ways in terms of development opportunities? How can you enable people to feel they're getting opportunities to learn and grow within your organisation? Rewarding performance, if you are part of a charity or a public sector organisation where it's pay increments, how do you reward those high performers? Is it through recognition? So looking at those, being creative about how we encourage performance behaviours, whatever our monetary position is. And again, that flows through. So this is really thinking about employee engagement, isn't it? So in terms of learning opportunities for people to learn and grow, often is something that is as rewarding, if not more rewarding, for some people. So we'll look at a learning culture. How can you create a learning for high performance? Encouraging people to learn for learning's sake, but also linking learning with purpose. So helping people to think about how they can develop themselves, take responsibility for their own learning. We'll touch on how can you create a culture of psychological safety, and encourage people to decide what they need to learn in order to develop themselves in a way that's going to develop your culture as a high-performing culture. So practical learning skills. Then we'll go on to talent. So there's two steps there. One is about bringing talent on, so recruiting and onboarding talent. So making sure we're in a position where we're attracting and retaining the right people. So we'll look at how can you define what you need for the organisation, how can you identify the right skills there, and onboarding them correctly so that they hit the ground running. Often we miss that step out. So how can we create an environment where we onboard appropriately? Then we've got talent development and retention. Well, we've talked about learning and development, hopefully. So this is more about strategies for succession planning. If you want to think about developing talent in specific ways, do you use something like the 9-box grid, alternatives to the 9-box grid? Talent pools, developing people in line with talent pools. But again, just thinking about how can we really engage people within our organisation, keep them excited, whatever their level. High performers, helping high performers to not go off the boil. So all of those sort of things there is episode 9. And then episode 10 is going to be really about culture, cultural mapping and development. So it's that unseen force. Have we got our culture where we want it to be? If we don't, how do we develop our culture? We'll look at things like the cultural web, managing culture change, various tools that we can use in there. So that's our 10-step plan. And actually, if it means that if you do get in touch, by the way, if you think this is going to be great or rubbish, tell me, please, because we're going to invest time and energy into developing this content and making it as practical as possible. But if you think there's something missing that would fit within our high performance HR series, please let me know, because that could get slotted into one of those topics. Or, if it goes well, maybe there's an episode 11 and 12 to come as well. So that's my summary and just telling you what's coming, which is really out of character for me to actually plan this far ahead. Slightly scary. because I know there are some listeners who'll notice if I go off track. But please keep me accountable, and I really hope you're going to find it valuable. I'd love to hear from you. We have the LinkedIn group. Please comment on there. LinkedIn can be a bit difficult to be engaging, or get in touch with me through social media. I'm on LinkedIn posting myself regularly, or get in touch with us. Just email us. Lucinda at advancedchange.co.uk. Just get in touch with me directly if you want to message me. And I will be having guests on again. Whether or not we leave them till the end of this series, or if we've got someone really exciting and I think you must be sick of listening to my solo episodes, then maybe we'll break the series up. So tell us what you think. Please do. If you've got something nice to say, I'd love it if you leave a review. If you're not so keen, just let us know in private. And I'd appreciate that massively too if you think that we need to change up what we're doing. Fundamentally, this series, it is designed to be practical, thought-provoking, and something that you can put into practice. So I'm hoping that I'm creating something that is valuable, and really that's the only reason that it's worth doing. So I would love to hear from you. So do reach out. So I'm looking forward to being in touch. Remember, we're going to go every other week from now on. So, and hopefully the way that means it'll drop, it means we will naturally miss Easter Monday and the bank holiday in May. So we won't have an extended drop off. I think the second bank holiday in May we might get affected by. So that's the way it's going to go. So there'll be every other week, giving us time to create content and supporting materials. Thanks so much for being a listener to the HR Uprising podcast. I really hope you found this week's episode useful and enjoyable. If you did, perhaps you could recommend us to a friend or colleague, or give us a review on your platform of choice. It really helps new listeners to find us. Now you can access links to any of the information mentioned in this show via the website www.hruprising.com. Further free resources are also available at www.actus.co.uk. There you can also find out more about our software and training solutions. Finally, why not join our LinkedIn group, the HR Uprising, to share ideas and collaborate with other like-minded people professionals. Thank you for listening to the HR Uprising podcast.